What is unethical as fuck, but is extremely common practice in the business world? Giving people an hour below what is considered full-time so they don't need benefits. And also apparently changing people's time cards frequently. Every job I've had has done that, and at the expense of my hours/pay too. Changing time cards is very illegal, not just unethical. My job had an e-login system for the time cards and forbade us from looking at how many hours we had. I'd ask the boss to check it for me and he'd say, "You can do math, add it up by hand." However, they changed their tune very quickly when I pointed out I somehow had been paid for 15 minutes less than my calculations. Larger companies that kill competition, innovation by buying out smaller companies just to stop what the smaller company is doing, or even keep lobbying the government to create barriers, restrictions for entry. Cough cough Walmart cough cough. Excuse me. I have a cold. Walmart does that. Fuck that place. Cough cough Verizon AT&T looking at you internet stoppers. Fuck big business. Lobbying the government to change the law to benefit your business. You pay for electioneering, they get elected and hook you up, lower taxes, weakened regulations, etc., hacking democracy. It's often stronger regulations for your competition. Firing people for medical issues. I don't know about all the states etc. If anyone knows, please illuminate. A co-worker of mine took a long medical leave for a spinal issue she was having with her neck. I believe she had surgery and then was on leave for a few weeks. Doc recommended not working more than 4 hours a day. When she came back with that news to HR, they fired her on the spot. I thought medical issues would be a discriminatory termination, but apparently they can just let you go if the state is at will. Sorry you had this invasive surgery that cost you a fortune, but you don't have a job anymore, see ya. If this is the US, that is illegal for most workers. FMLA protection runs out after 12 weeks, and it only applies after you work there a year, and only if you worked 1,250 hours in the last 12 months. It's super easy to get rid of people for medical reasons that don't violate FMLA as long as you're willing to be patient. Unpaid internships. No excuse for this. Chronically and purposely understaffing. Looking at you, retail and assisted living companies, giving your employees just few enough hours that they don't qualify as a full-time employee, so you don't have to pay them benefits. I worked at Walmart in high school. There were older adults who worked tons of overtime. Really out their heart into the company. How were they rewarded? At the end of the pay period, they had shifts cancelled to keep them under 40 hours. Such a garbage company. You can bet when I witnessed people shoplifting I looked the other way. Fuck that company. Not just cancelled shifts. Written up for going more than 5 minutes over your scheduled clock out time within a pay period. If suddenly tasked with something from management 10 minutes before the end of your shift, you better complete it with enough time to spare to sprint to the time clock to get out on time. Oh, yeah, this is usually being called to register in the middle of a rush. But if you clock out and are approached by a customer with a question, you are supposed to still direct them to one of the non-existent people out on the floor, because they only staff restocking in the morning or running registers, or help them yourself. Firing someone the moment you find out they're looking for another job. This is something I'm actually quite impressed with my current workplace. They know I'm actively looking for a job, but they're still sending me to trainings so I can use that in future employment opportunities. Sometimes employers hope that employees realize that it's not always greener on the other side. I've had employees that left because they wanted more money, their salaries were already competitive. What they later failed to realize was that the little things they had at the office were not available at the other company. This one was invented by Walmart, but I know that Home Depot does it too. I am sure other larger companies do it as well. 1. Place an order with a well-legally crafted purchase order. One of the T&C is that the company reserves the right to cancel the order at any time for any reason. 2. The smaller company receiving the PO is all excited and they go ahead to fill the order. This often involves paying out, or borrowing money, in order to fulfill the order 3. After the product is ready to be shipped, the buyer calls the company saying stuff like the pricing need work, we can't make money at this price point, we need some concessions. Practically they negotiate a lower price that results in the seller working for very little money or barely breaking even or losing money on the orders at times so badly to go out of business. Read the story of Vlasic https://www.fastcompany.com/47593/Falmart. You don't know. This has happened to my business in the past, and now I ask that any special or significantly large order be able to put a down payment, usually 50% or enough to cover our expense. However, some companies act like asking for a down payment is the same as grabbing their partner's ass and act tremendously offended. And I apologize for the crude remark, but I was struggling to think of an analogy. Most companies understand, but there are a few that refuse. And to be clear, I am not talking about bureaucratic instances like how the military cannot split payments. I work in the steel business. I do the same thing. But my analogy is, you can't buy 40 burgers from McD's and expect to pay them a month later, and after you ate the food. So why do folks think they can get supplies up front without paying a dime? SMH, I'm with you, brother. Unpaid overtime, more colloquially referred to as being on salary. Favoritism, promoting people into positions who have no business being there. Or in the government circles, promoting them to their level of incompetence. This happens plenty in the business world, not just government. The general practice of being able to cut you loose with zero notice, but if an employee decides to leave, they need 2 weeks notice, and even then, companies will raise a stink. It's completely legal to quit your job without a 2 weeks notification, you simply risk burning bridges there. Yup. But socially it's definitely unethical. Purposefully giving part-time employees erratic schedules so they can't take on a second job. Lol, I worked at a restaurant that did this, so my co-workers and I made our own schedules and traded shifts every week to keep it consistent. Manager couldn't do shit about it because we were allowed to trade shifts, and changing that policy would make half the place quit. You're fortunate. A lot of places in my current town would basically have nipped that in the bud to begin with, then colluded with other restaurant owners to effectively blackball the people for a while. 0-hour contracts. Basically you are a full-time employee, but have no set hours, and have to come when you're called, or otherwise be scheduled as they see fit. Edit, lots of queries. Here is a Wikipedia article on this issue that answers most questions better than I can. https://n.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/0hour_contract. And they don't get fired, they just stop getting hours, meaning they can't claim employment unless they quit, which can make it more difficult. Raising prices before putting items on sale. Looking at you, Kohl's. As a former Kohl's cashier, I can attest that they are the worst with this. It should be illegal. Fine print. I always read it because all the bad stuff is there, but so many don't know to. I think we don't read it not because we don't know about the threat, but because we feel powerless to do anything about it. I know I do. My old salaried position requires copious amounts of overtime. In the end my hourly wage was less than the people I was supervising. Salary is a fucking scam. Their whole argument is that it doesn't matter how much you work, you get paid the same amount. So if you have a slow week with little to do, you can leave early and not worry. It'll just be balanced out when it's crunch time and you have to do unpaid OT. Thing is, there's basically never a time where you have so little work you can skip out, and on the occasions that you can, good luck not getting in trouble for making the company pay you for not doing anything. Never mind that you're doing extra work for no pay far more often. Salary is a scam because they put a floor on the amount of hours you're expected to work but not a ceiling. I don't know about unethical as fuck, but going through the motions of pretending to entertain outside candidates when you've already decided on who internally will get the job. wastes everyone's time. Sometimes it's company policy to post and interview for all positions, especially within a union setting. It's extremely frustrating because I've been dragged through a good half-dozen interviews/callbacks when they already had someone lined up, usually someone's relative. Yes, this happened to me as well. Internal job applications are tailored for the specific candidate, and they just interview other applicants because they are bound by HR rules saying they must. Not telling employees that the company or division has a planned date to shut down, then letting them go the day of. This happens everywhere from major mega corporations to mom and pop restaurants. There are reasons as to why, given that there's still money to be made up until the last minute and you don't want your employees to slack off. And while obviously it's devastating to the employees who get laid off, it can also be pretty bad to the employees aren't getting laid off but have to be told ahead of time and can't say anything. It's also to protect stock, at least with public companies. If investors find out that a company is going bust, they will run, the stock price and value of the company plummets, and the business goes out of business even quicker. Absolutely. And not just stocks, if there's other money coming in like advertising sales or product orders, they don't want to devalue that months ahead of time. Unpaid internships are supposed to be on-site learning opportunities but are often just slave labor. Treating people bad, to make them quit the job because you don't have the balls to fire them, or you are afraid that the word your company can fire someone anytime will spread and you will lose control. I think this has to do with avoiding paying benefits. I think employers can sometimes be made to pay some amount of their fired employees' unemployment benefits. There are a million different variables to consider how and when this would apply, though. In the US, unemployment benefits basically work like an insurance policy. If you fire someone, that person makes a claim and get paid. Then the employer's unemployment insurance rates go up because a claim had to be paid. So yes, companies actively avoid firing because if they force you to quit, then your claim gets denied and their rates don't go up, selling user data. This is massive. Large organizations who donate/contribute large amounts to non-profits, 501c3s, frequently strong-arm the little charities they basically support into giving up that data for their personal group's marketing and data. Hey, give us your membership information, or wink wink, you might have some issues with your budget next year. There are a bunch of 501c3s in Wyoming that got their data used by the Storer Foundation groups during the last few election cycles here. Best way to win votes: play to their heartstrings or where they donate. Edit: tons of bigger money groups to this. I'm just specifying the one I have experience with. Hiding fees until the service is provided. I was in a car accident that required an ambulance ride, and I was charged double for it. Apparently the two ambulance companies in my area are in cahoots, so rather than share the business in my area 50-50, they apparently devised a way to split it 100/100ths. They each have one person from the other company ride in their company's ambulance. The explanation I received was, since a medic from the other company was riding along in the ambulance I took, they now can both charge me. Again, they didn't split the fee. They each charged me fully. It's almost a brilliant scheme, but also absolutely unethical and ridiculous, and I can't fathom how this is even legal. On a side note, they didn't even treat me on the ride. Imagine airlines double charging for a seat because one of the pilots was from another airline. Insanity. Bribes are super common. Details? Edit: should have been specific. I know how bribes work. I was wondering about how we know they're common. Corporation Corp wants to bid on a government contract, say, building a nuclear power plant. Government official says you're from out of town and your bid is too high. That makes your score too low to get this massive contract. Corporation Corp asks what they can do to boost their score. Government official says, hire Expert Corp as a consultant, they'll help you out. Corporation hires Expert Corp for several millions of dollars. Expert writes a wonderful review of the company's technical details and reputation for quality work. Corporation cause bid get a higher score, and they get a $50 million contract. A decade later, the RCMP find out that Expert Corp is owned by the government official's son and that government official was not a good person at all. /insider trading /nepotism. Fun fact, JFK's dad got rich by inside trading back when it was still legal. He was later appointed head of the SEC. The first thing he did was make insider trading illegal. JFK's dad got rich bootlegging during Prohibition. Letting people ass-kiss their way to the top when they are highly unqualified. Happens more than it should and causes a lot of issues for people who are under them or who didn't get that position because they don't ass-kiss, but are way more qualified. Not paying invoices until you've been chased multiple times. As standard policy. Had a boss who did this, but hated it when people did it to them. Boss claimed they paid late because everyone else did, but there are plenty of arguments each way there. Boss also hated it when one creditor applied to have the company wound up, liquidated, for non-payment because of the delay. In boss's semi-defense, it was like the proverbial sledgehammer to crack a nut. The bill was for a relatively small amount of money. In the creditor's defense, I think they were making a point about the whole late payment practice in general. Going to a small family-run paper company, pretending to be a lawyer who is interested in buying paper there and get their list of satisfied clients. Then turning that list over to your boss in a larger paper company in order to destroy the small company. Loyalty is punished by laying the most work on the most productive, while overlooking these workers for promotions. If you're a great worker, they give you the shit jobs because you don't bitch and moan. I can confirm. I was moved 5x in 1 year at my last job because I wouldn't raise a fuss. I also was one of the few to work every team. It didn't help me come lay off time. Edit, the last move that year was to a different building and department, they told me the day I came back from bereavement. I'm still salty about that 7 years later. The multitudes of ways in which work life bleeds into personal life and you're expected to just accept that and worse, actively embrace it, else you're perceived as someone who doesn't want to get ahead or otherwise isn't as valued as the person who does. The company will always try and get more free time from you, but far less than always, bordering on never, actually give you back what that extra time costs. Just had a team pep talk from my boss Friday. Talking about how we're super busy, and he realizes that he's putting a lot of new projects on us, but how important it is to his boss that our team keeps knocking it out of the park day in and day out. And boss man is just so confident that we'll do whatever it takes to make sure everything gets done, coming in early, staying late, working weekends, etc. Fuck that. I don't get paid extra for any of that shit. And if I have to put the kids in daycare longer, I am going to lose money staying to help out. Go to hell, hire some people. I don't care if shit doesn't get done on time. When 5 PM rolls around, my ass is already in the parking lot. Yeah, when I was still working, that was my mindset too. You didn't give me enough time to complete a task. Sucks for you, bitch. I work at the speed of light, but if you don't give me adequate time, there's no way I, or anyone, can finish in time, and that's your problem, not mine. I have a family, I have a life. And I will not screw them for a job that pays hardly anything. It's a large part of why I left. I was so sick of the shit that was thrown my way. Of course, in my job, there was basically no hope of any kind of promotion or even increase in salary, so I legitimately didn't care.